Alpha 21 has buffed spears, but by how much, and more importantly, was it enough? Spoiler alert, yes. We're going to cover the damage differences between Alpha 20 and Alpha 21's level 1 stone spear for our worst case, and the level 6 iron spear for like our middle case, and the level 6 steel spear for your absolute best case scenario with the spear. The level 1 stone spear in Alpha 20 did a base damage of 10.3 for a light attack and 28.5 for a throw attack. In Alpha 21, that's now 13.8 damage for a light attack, and the powered attack now does 27.6 damage, which is a slight damage loss. But the stamina cost of this powered attack in Alpha 21 is only 26. In Alpha 20, the powered attack was actually a throw, which took several seconds to charge, and it took about 50% more stamina to do at 37.7. I don't know about you, but I'll take an instant powered attack that does slightly less damage, but has no charge time and uses 50% less stamina any day of the week. So I'm going to call that a buff. Now, people who prefer the old throwing system will naturally disagree there, but from playing with these on Alpha 21, I can tell you that they're very, very strong, completely viable on even insane difficulty, and even insane nightmare. They do work pretty much as well as clubs and the other melee weapons, which are considered really good on those difficulties. The only problem being you do have to work on your accuracy with a spear because there's absolutely no swing to it. It is just you poke it outwards, so if you miss, you miss. Now, for anyone wondering, almost everything else with the stone spear is basically the same. We've got the 30% armor ignore, the same attack speed, the same stamina on light attacks, just a more efficient powered attack and a higher base damage. But overall, it is a much more effective weapon. But what about the iron spear? Well, the iron spear at level 6 does about 26 damage in Alpha 21 with a light attack. The reason it's not precise is because iron and steel weapons have variable statistics and can be slightly higher or lower than their base stats, but we're going off those base stats in the code just to make things simpler. Now, in Alpha 20, that 26 damage attack would have only done 18 damage. It's so significant that an Alpha 21 level 1 iron spear does the same damage as an Alpha 20 level 6 iron spear or level 1 steel spear. The Alpha 20 throw with an iron spear did about 52 damage, and in Alpha 21 the powered attack does roughly 52 damage as well, so it's the same, but it used to use 40 stamina and now it only uses 35. So that's just a straight up buff. Everything else seems the same statistically though. For level 6 steel spears, we had 27.9 base damage, which was buffed up to a whopping 39.3 damage, which is almost a 50% damage increase. The throw in Alpha 20 did 79 damage for 45 stamina, and the powered attack now does about the same damage, slightly less, but it only costs 40 stamina. So across the board, the spears have a higher base damage with the light attack, but with the way the power attacks are calculated versus how the damage on the throws was calculated, the powered attack damage is largely slightly microscopically smaller, but you don't have to charge that throw. You can do a lot more powered attacks in a short span compared to throwing them, and you use less stamina. And there's obviously no risk of throwing your spear into the sun, and that's a solid buff in itself, and if that's where the video ended, I'd be quite happy with those changes. But the spears have some other buffs in less obvious statistical ways. The first one is the skill books. The skill books are busted, broken, borked. For normal people, they've made the books a lot stronger. The new bleed book, which gives you a 25% chance to inflict bleed stack, which does 20 damage over time, is a buff. The Volume 4 book, which gives you 50% more powered attack damage to downed opponents, is really good because of the buff damage and the conventional power attack. Knocking over zombies is pretty easy to do with spears now. And this is me talking about insane difficulty, by the way. For the vast majority of players who play on around warrior difficulty, spears are going to be even better for you. But anyway, as I was saying, Because of the buff damage in conventional powered attack, knocking over zombies is easy, and that 50% extra damage to downed enemies is one of the strongest effects you can get from a book in the game. A very, very strong and significant buff for spears. The penetration book lets you hit through one enemy into a second with a light attack, meaning you hit 2 zombies with 1 melee attack, which makes up for the lack of a swing, I would say, and it also lets you hit 4 enemies with a heavy attack, again making up for the lack of a swing by letting you attack in a straight line even further. This can obviously be manipulated quite well in a horde-based situation. And the completion bonus for spears is now absolutely wild. Kills just completely refill your stamina bar, although it doesn't work with bleed. But any zombie you kill with a powered attack or a light attack will completely restore all of your stamina, and it is insanely good. It makes spears very similar in power level to clubs, with similar damage and similar stamina efficiency. I think the main thing holding spears back, aside from the fact that they are quite difficult to use if you're not particularly good at aiming, is that a lot of the perks in perception are kind of bad, and it makes investing into the entire perception tree a lot less enticing compared to, say, strength. But honestly, it's still definitely worth giving them a try, and they are completely viable, so I would recommend if you're bored of all the other melee weapons, spears will have you covered. Now, spears received even more buffs, which all of the melee weapons received in some way, but it's still worth noting down. Sexual Tyrannosaurus doesn't exist anymore, and instead it's integrated into each individual weapon perk, so as a spears player you do not have to touch strength. You'll get all 4 ranks of Sexual Tyrannosaurus, including the stamina reduction and the stamina on kill for your spear specifically in ranks 2 to 5 of Spear Master. I would call that a buff for spears specifically, ignoring all the other weapons and attributes, because now making a spear build is cheaper and easier. You don't have to touch strength, just perception, just rush perception and Spear Master right out the gate, and you will be doing tons of damage early game, and it scales very well into the late game. We also got the Quick and Perceptive perk, which is Perception's version of the Flurry of Blows perk, and this will increase your attack speed by 10%, 17% and 25% at Perceptions 4, 7 and 10 respectively. This is just a pure buff, because now you can get 25% more DPS than was available in Alpha 20, because Flurry of Blows didn't affect spears. And crafting spears is pretty easy in Alpha 21 as well. The magazines are fairly common, and taking points in Spear Master will increase your chances of finding the magazines in the parts. Finding the skill books for spears seems disproportionately easy compared to any other skill book. For example, in my first playtest with Alpha 21, I had all 7 ranks of spears by the end of day 2. I have to imagine that's a bug or just insane luck on my part. Either way, that may be fixed in the future. But overall, I do really enjoy this spear buff. It is by far the best feature of Alpha 21, and I think even though a lot of people are enjoying it, it's still undersold as to how much better spears are. Because a lot of people in the streamer weekend were just playing like Nomad, Warrior, even Adventurer difficulty, and it's difficult to get a gauge on how powerful they made the spears when everything on that difficulty one-shots anyway. I'm playing Insane Nightmare on the screen with all the perks at a very high game stage with all the skill books, and you can see it's handling tier 4 POIs more or less as well as a club would. In some parts of the POIs, it's even outperforming what a club would do, which is very promising because this is at the absolute highest end of the gameplay, where the faults in these buffs are going to be much more noticeable. I can say with playing Insane Nightmare for a little bit with the spears, they work. They've been buffed well. It's difficult to see that when people are playing Adventurer, but Insane Nightmare, they absolutely slap. So they will work for you no matter what level of player you are. I would still say that clubs generally are still going to be the more powerful weapon, and that's because clubs are in strength, and strength has an innate advantage in single player due to you generally needing to take mining perks eventually, but it's a very close second for spears in my opinion. And it's a lot closer than I ever would have expected, and the armor penetration of spears is just a cherry on the top. So that's my thoughts and findings on spears in Alpha 21. I hope you found... fucking cars. I hope you found the video helpful in deciding if you want to try spears. Subscribe for more Alpha 21 content like this, and thank you to my channel members and patrons for making this video possible. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.